Allen Iverson is one of the most polarizing players in the history of the NBA. Yet, for all the people doubting and criticizing his place as one of the best players in the history of the game, there's no doubt that he overcame the odds and had one of the best seasons an underdog player could ever have. That was in 2001 when he proved he was a human highlight reel and an undoubted renegade in a league full of players who love beating the odds. But there are a lot of reasons why that 2001 season from Iverson was something special. If there's someone who had a habit of beating the odds, that would be Allen Iverson. As a high school standout, he had a good career waiting for him because he was such an athlete. Iverson was born with incredible speed and a tough and competitive demeanor. However, legal problems almost derailed his basketball career, making it hard for him to find college suitors after his incarceration. That was one of the first odds he had to overcome. Born into poverty and struggling to find prospects out of basketball, he somehow overcame the odds when Georgetown University took a chance on him. John Thompson knew he had something special in Iverson, and that was why the legendary college coach decided to take the renegade youngster in. True enough, AI took over and immediately showed to the entire nation why he was a special basketball talent. Iverson's career took off, turning a struggling team into must-watch television. What made him truly entertaining was his ability to take over games, using his athleticism and crafty dribbles to blow past defenders. And for a guy standing at a generous 6 feet tall, he wasn't afraid of attacking the basket regardless of how many big men were ready to clobber him.
Iverson with that great first step.
In no time, Iverson became a national sensation. During his second season with the Hoyas, he averaged 25 points and 3.4 steals while honing his overall offense. He added the jump shot to his game, allowing him to stretch his field goal shooting percentage from 39% to 48%. That final year with Georgetown, he took his team to the East Regional Final, overcoming the odds and proving to the entire nation he was a force to be reckoned with at just 6 feet tall. So, when he finally decided to make the jump to the NBA in 1996, he was one of the headliners of what ultimately became a legendary 1996 draft class. That year's crop of prospects was special because it had Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Jermaine O'Neal, and Antoine Walker, among others. But the man everyone was looking at was Iverson because of his incredible collegiate career. He was the #1 overall pick taken by the Philadelphia 76ers. In no time at all, he turned into the Sixers' franchise player, becoming one of the best youngsters in the league during his rookie year. There were plenty of highlights that defined his rookie season. But chief among them was when he crossed Michael Jordan over and hit a mid-range jump shot over the GOAT's outstretched arms. That was when people realized AI could be someone the league could rely on as one of its faces for the next 10 years or so. True enough, he only got better as the seasons progressed. By the 1999 season, he had transformed into one of the best scorers in the game, averaging around 27 points and winning his first scoring title.
Iverson the steal, lined up by Furry, forget it.
Allen Iverson had become one of the best pure scorers in the league, and plenty of things defined his game. The first thing that popped out was his speed. Iverson could run the floor faster than any guard, blowing past defenders and turning into a one-man fast break. Meanwhile, in half-court sets, he could either explode past his defender or use his crossover moves to shake his man off. AI had become one of the best ball handlers in the league, putting on highlight reel moments with his dribbles. But that was only a small part of his game. Iverson's scoring was reliant on his ability to attack. He could get to the basket at will and try to finish over bigger players at just 6 feet tall. It didn't matter whether it was Shaquille O'Neal or Tim Duncan meeting him at the basket. He did not fear anyone, no matter how many inches he gave him. And on the perimeter, there was no jump shot he did not like. Iverson would try to shoot any shot as long as he thought he could make it. In short, he was a man of supreme confidence. No one could shake his belief in his game, as he believed more than anyone else that he could hang with the best that the game had to offer. And because of that renegade personality, he allowed the Sixers to contend in the East during much of the late 90s up to the early 2000s. But that rebellious nature was also what turned him into a polarizing superstar. His personality was unlike any other, making him the commissioner's nightmare and a source of media front-page news. He loved speaking his mind and showing people his true, unadulterated personality.
Fouled out, so Corey Alexander on Iverson. Here's Allen for the tie. Yeah!
Meanwhile, his fashion sense was the league's nightmare. Iverson hated dress codes, often going against the grain and allowing hip-hop culture to permeate the league through his fashion sense. The cornrows, baggy shirts, and blings might be common today, but in the early 2000s, they were taboo in the eyes of the league's front office because the NBA wanted the next face of the sport to look clean and marketable. Iverson, however, didn't have the right look the league wanted from a superstar in the post-Jordan era. But no matter how rebellious he may have been, fans loved him for being himself and changing the culture. And it was during the 2001 season that he ultimately transformed into the league's biggest renegade, a highlight reel that went against the odds and made people believe in underdogs. Everything came together during that season. The Sixers built the roster around his speed and his will. Larry Brown pushed him hard, and he pushed back just as hard. They argued, then they won. Philly fed on that energy. He opened the year on fire, buckets in bunches. Lanes that did not exist until he made them. That crossover could tilt the floor. Defenders guessed and still got it wrong. He hit the deck and got back up night after night.
Huge bucket by Allen Iverson, who's got 45.
The awards followed him. He took the scoring title, averaging over 31 points while leading the league in steals. No man at 6 feet tall should ever be allowed to score 30 points a night, but Iverson did. On top of that, he carried the heaviest load in the conference and still found ways to close games. The Sixers finished with one of the best records in the East because he refused to slow down. Meanwhile, the roster fit his chaos. Eric Snow steadied the offense and guarded point guards who were bigger. Aaron McKie gave them a cool head and won Sixth Man of the Year. Tyrone Hill set bone-rattling screens and vacuumed rebounds. George Lynch did the dirty work on the wing. Role players filled gaps and stayed steady. Raja Bell was a rookie who did not blink. Jermaine Jones gave them length when injuries hit. Everyone bought into the grind. The front office made the bold move that season. Theo Ratliff went down and the team swung for Dikembe Mutombo. The shot blocker with the finger wag landed in Philly and gave the Sixers an anchor. He protected the rim and swallowed rebounds. He won Defensive Player of the Year, and Brown won Coach of the Year, and Iverson won MVP. That trio told the story of that team. Edge on the perimeter, brains on the bench, and teeth in the paint. Iverson's MVP year was more than scoring. It was pace and pressure. He pushed the ball until opponents gasped. He turned steals into layups and free throws. He took hits and kept going. He played through bruised ribs and tender ankles and a sore shoulder. The elbow flared up, so he pulled on a compression sleeve. It started as a fix and became a look that spread across gyms everywhere. Kids copied the sleeve and the braids and the swagger. Culture followed the player. All-Star Weekend confirmed the moment. He won the All-Star Game MVP with a furious finish. Small in size and huge in force.
Diao to inbound. Bell for the tie.
He hunted the last minutes and flipped the game. That night felt like a preview of spring. But the playoffs were a test of will. First came Indiana in a quick series where he set the tone. Then Toronto with Vince Carter in full flight. That duel turned into must-watch television. Iverson went for 54 in Game 2 and 52 in Game 5. He kept firing even when the defense crowded him. He used screens and rescreens and stepbacks to carve space the size of a shoebox. Game 7 turned into survival. Carter's last shot rimmed out and Philly moved on, allowing Iverson to once again beat the odds. Then, Milwaukee waited in the conference finals. Ray Allen, Glenn Robinson, and Sam Cassell could score from everywhere. The series stretched to 7 and felt longer. What made it longer was the fact that Iverson missed time. When he returned taped up and furious. And the entire team rallied around his fury. McKee hit big jumpers, Mutombo controlled the glass late, and Raja Bell cut and finished in traffic. The city roared as the clock bled out in Game 7. Confetti fell as the smallest superstar had dragged a battered roster to the finals. Then came the Lakers. They had Shaq at his peak and Kobe in full bloom. They had blitzed through the West without a loss, ready to win the championship in what was supposed to be a perfect playoff run.
Bothered by Lewis. Iverson.
Game 1 in Los Angeles looked like a coronation for them until Iverson decided it would not be. He scored 48. He sliced into the lane and floater after floater found the net. He hit jumpers off balance and still balanced. He hunted Tyronn Lue in space. In overtime, he buried a corner jumper and stepped over Lue like he was just another obstacle on a long road. That image burned into the league. It was defiance turned into art. It was one of the biggest moments a superstar could ever have, as that moment still finds itself in video packages all over the world. The Lakers adjusted and powered through the rest of the series, yet they could not erase Game 1. Philly took the only game Los Angeles lost that entire postseason. Against a giant, Iverson gave the league's best team a reason to sweat. That was the biggest challenge he overcame. No one in the West could solve the Lakers. Big players like Chris Webber, Tim Duncan, and David Robertson did not know what hit them in the West. But a 6-foot guard basically gave his heart and soul to take that game away from the Lakers. Suddenly, Shaq and Kobe looked mortal, courtesy of a tiny and rebellious guard who never took no for an answer. And that was the agenda all year long during that 2001 season for Iverson. What made his 2001 tape impossible to forget was the variety. Coast-to-coast bursts that ended with soft layups off the glass. Crossovers that froze bigs and guards the same. Baseline spins into pull-ups that kissed the front rim and crawled in. Leaners that should not have dropped, but did because his touch in traffic was elite. Contact at the rim turned into free throws because he attacked without fear. He finished through hugs and forearms, and the occasional nosedive into the photographers. He got up and pointed to his heart. He was a mismatch without needing height. He beat length with speed and timing. He beat power with angles. He created time where none existed by changing pace twice in one dribble. If the first step was the knife, the second step was the twist. Meanwhile, Larry Brown's playbook was a maze of Iverson actions. Iverson cut across the baseline, curled up to the elbow, then sprinted out the far side. He ran Iverson cuts with staggered screens. He used Iverson to pull two defenders and free McKee at the nail. He used Mutombo to screen high and pull the opposing center away from the rim. The sets were built to carve small pockets where Iverson could get downhill or rise for a pull-up. When the shot clock shrank, the plan was simple. Give it to the guy wearing number 3.
Wanted a foul. Iverson with the steal. Goes inside.
Defense mattered to him that year too. He gambled, but he gambled with purpose. Quick hands dug at bigs, and he jumped passing lanes after the first swing. Those steals sparked runs, and those runs broke opponents who were already tired of chasing him. The human highlight reel label in 2001 was not about isolated play, but also the chain reaction he created every night. A steal that led to a fast break that led to a building that shook. Crossover that forced a second defender that opened a kick-out 3. A fearless drive that drew help that turned into a lob for Mutombo. Philly won because his audacity had gravity. He paid for that style with bruises and minutes. He played through pain that would have sat others down. He practiced less late in the year to be ready on game nights. His routine was treatment, film, more treatment, then chaos under the lights. It was not sustainable for most, but he made it feel normal. People still split on the numbers. Efficiency hawks sighed. Old heads smiled and said the only number that matters is the scoreboard. But in 2001, the scoreboard kept swinging his way. That was the proof he cared about.
Alexander on Iverson. Here's Allen for the tie. Yes!
There was more than production. There was presence. He walked into arenas and the temperature rose. Opposing coaches changed rotations to match his minutes. Teammates stood taller because he was already standing for them. Philly crowds love grinders and fighters. He was both. He gave them a villain and a hero in one small frame. Reebok put him in the answer 4 with the zipper that season. The shoe became part of the silhouette. You can see the zipper when you watch the step over clip. You can hear the squeak of those soles when he split a trap and streaked to the rim. The gear was fashionable and functional. It let him move, and it let kids dream. He never tried to fit the box. He wore what he wore. He spoke how he spoke. He moved the league toward the streets and the streets toward the league. The arm sleeve showed up on youth courts. The headband and the braids showed up. The message was simple. Be great and be yourself. The season doubled as proof. That is why 2001 still hits. The sporting reasons are clear. The cultural reasons are everywhere. The best player under 6 feet in shoes took home MVP and carried a city to June. He did it with a body that looked light and a game that felt heavy. He did it with speed and stubbornness and craft. He did it after the world told him he would not. And while he didn't win that championship in 2001, a win against a team no one could have beaten was the icing on the cake for that season full of highlights for Allen Iverson.